So let's continue on our journey. A national best-selling author, Sara Richardson, a Silverado Lake novel, Last Dance with a Cowboy. And here we go. All eyes focused on him as everyone waited for an answer. No surprise there. Wes had likely wasted no time telling them all that August's ex-girlfriend had showed up at the ranch before he arrived. August had been intentionally vague about his purpose for coming back to Silverado Lake. He hadn't wanted his family to know why he was there before Leela knew. Well, this was where he had to be careful and keep any information he offered as high level as he could. Valentino Bellows is now a partner of Kingston. Seriously? Wes frowned. Yikes. That doesn't seem like a great fit. How does Leela feel about it? His brother had always been the master of 20 questions. She's not thrilled. That was putting Lila's feelings mildly. So you're like her boss now. Jane's grimace made it clear what she thought about that arrangement. Kind of. He wasn't going to be able to know their fake engagement. He wasn't going to be able to keep their fake engagement a secret. If Nana had her... Wait a minute. Is that right? Yeah, that was right. Sorry about that. I was double guessing myself. If Nana had her way, word would reach the town cafe by noon, and the owner was Jane's best friend. His family had best hear the details from him. My assignment at the winery has turned out to be a little bit more complicated than being her boss, though. I would imagine so, seeing as how you and Leela never really had much closure, his sister said with a snicker. Who's Leela? Ryan was looking back and forth between the adults, as though trying his best to follow the conversation. She was the love of August's life once, Wes informed the boy with a smirk. Gross, never mind. Ryan scampered off with snatched a shovel off the lounge chair before digging in the sand. The kid had the right idea. Avoid and distract. So you've talked to Leela then? Jane inched closer, her eyebrows raised with a blatant hopefulness. Was she happy to see you? Not exactly. He wasn't sure why he was bothering to beat around the bush. There was no way to hide their arrangement, especially because his family couldn't accidentally reveal anything about the partnership to Nana and Papa. Charlie reached up to pat his cheek, babbling again, but her cuteness didn't distract Jane. Well, how'd the reunion go? His sister nudged his shoulder. Come on, you're holding out on us, and I can tell. Right, he'd forgotten his sister's uncanny intuition. It was unexpected. Jane posted her hands on her hips, silently demanding more than an explanation. August sighed. Why was this so difficult to say? She wanted to tell her grandparents were engaged. He paused for the impending reaction and was not disappointed. Jane slapped a hand over her mouth. Toby laughed, and Wes, good old Wes, let out expletives before remembering his kids were right there. That's 2 quarters in the jar, Ryan informed him from the hole he was still working on a few feet away. Thea laughed from her front row seat on the lounge chair. He's a stickler for language. Tell me about it. Wes winked at his wife. I'm going to go broke. His brother turned his grin back to August. So how did you two lovebirds get engaged anyway? Don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled for you, but this seems a little fast. I've heard of a shotgun wedding, but not a shotgun engagement. Cue the sarcasm in his brother's voice. August shook his head, replaying the afternoon's events in his mind. He still wasn't sure what the hell had happened. My boss assigned me to come out here to help manage the business, but Leela doesn't want her grandparents to know things have been going downhill. So that was the best story we could come up with for why I'm be around all the time. Whoa, Wes sat on the edge of Thea's chair, peering up at him. So now you two have to pretend to be in love the whole time that you're here? That won't backfire or anything. August ignored the ribbing tone. It can't backfire. I have a job to do. And he had to do this job, well, if he wanted to hold Forrest to his office. Usually, when he entered a new business venture, he took control. Something told him and wouldn't be happening this time. But maybe this would be like all the parties he attended back in Napa. He simply would play a role and still be able to maintain a safe distance. All I know is she asked me to keep her partnership quiet. Look at all of my favorite people in the one place, his mom sang behind him. Snapping his mouth shut, August handed Charlie to her mom before turning to give his own mother an obligatory hug. In some ways, Mara looked younger than she had in the years following his father's death. Back then, she'd taken on all the stress associated with trying to provide for the family, to make ends meet. She turned around their dude ranch into a wedding venue so she could make enough to keep the place afloat. Now that Jane and Toby had taken over the family business, though, his mother seemed to glow. She traveled and met with friends and seemed to revel in the new role as a new grandmother to Olivia, Ryan, and Shelley. What did I miss? She parked herself on the edge of Olivia's lounge chair and added one more pair of eyes on him. Augie and Leela are engaged, Jane announced, looking quite amused by the whole mess. We're not engaged, he corrected. We're pretending to be engaged. There's a big difference. Mainly involvement of real feelings. He couldn't get the cold look out of Leela's eyes out of his head. Pretending? Mara rose slowly from the seat she'd just taken. Why? Why would you do that? He'd seen that same grin expression on his mother's face many times back in high school, and it still turned his gut to lead. Because she asked me to. Sometimes the truth was simpler than coming up with an excuse. I know it sounds ridiculous, but Leela didn't want her grandparents to stress over how bad things are up there, and they needed Kingston to bail them out. So this is how she wanted to handle me working at the winery. I'm only trying to do what she wants. He already felt bad enough about being the one who would help Forrest take controlling ownership over the winery. He knew his boss. The man wouldn't let Valentino Bellows remain a mom-and-pop shop. August only hoped that he could help Leah keep a job there at the end of fall. The explanation didn't seem to appease his mother. His scowl deepened. And just what am I supposed to tell my friends when they ask about you two? Everyone will know. Everyone will think you're getting married. He shrugged, much like he had when he hadn't had an answer for her at 18 years old. Say you haven't heard much. Plans are still up in the air. Mara shook her head, her lips pursed into a thin, rigid line. I can't believe this. You know how I feel about lying. You're busted, Ryan informed him, trading out his shovel for a dump truck. I bet you'll get grounded. That's what happens to me when I tell a lie. I wouldn't mind getting grounded right about now, or being sent back to his home in California and away from all of this complications. I hate lying too. He rested his hands on his mother's shoulders and smiled at her so she would remember he was the good person she raised him to be. But this is what Layla thinks is best for now. I'm not asking you to lie. Tell people you don't know what's going on and leave it at that. He dropped his arms to his sides and looked at both of his siblings. The same goes for you two. Anyone asks you questions, blow the whole thing off. Given his past mistakes, people probably wouldn't believe he planned on sticking around anyway. Chapter 4. Leela steered the ATV around the bend in the vineyard's eastern section of Merlot's, navigating the precarious path between the vines and a steep drop-off on the edge of the mountainside. She always loved this view, overlooked the valley, but she didn't dare take her eyes off the ruts in the road in front of her. If she weren't in such a hurry to find Sam, she might have stopped to snap a couple of pictures for their social media posts to help draw in new customers, with the allure of the ripe grapes hanging heavy on the vines, but the photos would have to wait. Sam had been out here somewhere all afternoon, and she had yet to find him to warn him about August, which should make their impending family celebration dinner a real fun time. Slowing the ATV, she eyed the narrowing pathway and decided to continue on foot. It had been a long time since she navigated these makeshift roads, and she didn't need to go for a tumble down the mountainside right now. Tempting as it was a way to find out of sharing dinner with her fake fiancé. Leela cut the engine and slipped off her helmet, setting it on the ATV seat before wandering along the vines. She had to smile, remembering all the time she spent out here when she was growing up, roaming barefoot in the soft dirt and sampling the plump grapes when her mama and papa weren't paying attention. The sweet scent of ripened fruit sharpened her memories, bringing more clarity. She once felt safe out here, happy and carefree. Now the countless issues the winery faced were piling up like rocks on her shoulders, pushing her down, and she wasn't sure how long she'd be able to keep her head above water. Her brother stepped out from the vines about 15 feet in front of her, holding a bunch of grapes up as though inspecting them in the sunlight. Finally, Leela rushed to talk to him before she got lost in the memories of forever. Hey. Her brother fumbled with the grapes, clearly startled. No surprise there. Her brother had always managed to tune out everything else when he was working in the vineyard. That was why he couldn't help out on the business side of things. Before she moved home, Sam had tried, bless him, but he couldn't focus on the details like sales and marketing when he was so obsessed with the chemistry behind glycolite enzymes and pectin and tannins. Hi. He plucked a grape from the bunch and popped it into his mouth, chewing slowly. I've been looking everywhere for you. Leela approached him, taking a glance at her watch. August would likely show up any time now for dinner. We have to talk. In response, Sam held up one finger in her direction, still savoring the grape with a thoughtful expression. Though he was 3 years younger than her, Sam was at least 2 heads taller and built like a linebacker. Though he detested football, his strength came from working the earth, tending the vines, walking the vineyards, and repairing whatever needed to be fixed around the here, which seemed to be more and more of a full-time job. Unlike her, though, he didn't seem to absorb the stress. His large dark eyes and broad face still had the boyish qualities, and his long sun-lightened hair always lay over his ears and kept. Leela stared at him, resisting the temptation to rush him along he'd never had seen had the sense of urgency as much as it drove her up a wall. Sam would have to be eased into this conversation when he was good and ready. We'll have to harvest soon, he said finally, and he finished chewing. I would say another month or so. Okay, she hated that, for the first thought was how much they would have to pay a crew of seasonal workers to walk through and snip the grapes. Lately everything came down to money, and they didn't have. I'm sure we can make that happen, though once again she had no idea how. We can talk about harvesting later. Right now there's something else we need to discuss. She paused, trying to figure out the best way to bring him up to speed on the August situation. Her brother eyed her, like he was analyzing her the same way he had the grapes. He'd been sampling. What's wrong? He let the rest of his bunch drop to the dirt and gave her complete attention. Nothing's wrong, per se. She kept her tone light. God, why did her heart get all rattled and wild when she thought about August? You haven't seen Nana lately, have you? Maybe she should have just let Grandmother break the news. At least in Nana's presence, Sam would have been so on his best behavior. No, I haven't seen her since this morning. His pensive expression gave way to concern. Why, is she okay? She's great, and Lila intended to keep their grandmother blissfully happy and unaware of the issues they were facing. I have to tell you something, and you're not going to like it. Heck, she didn't like August walking back into her life, but there was nothing she could do about his presence now except he retained control of this charade. Sam's head tilted, a sign that he was listening. It has to do with August. Why was this so hard to say that man's name? A tie worked through her brother's jaw, so she rushed ahead. Remember how I told you about the partnership with Kingston? From the very beginning, she kept Sam informed as she could, so she would have an ally. Yeah. He drew out the word with a menacing grumble. Well, Layla shifted her weight from one foot to the other, trying to manage the sudden weakness in her knees. Forrest Kingston sent August out here to oversee our operation for the fall. She patiently waited for Sam's cursing to pass and then continued. But the real problem is, we had to tell Nana that we're engaged so she wouldn't find out the truth about the partnership. Engaged to that dual nel culo? The old Italian phrase had always been the Papa's favorite insult. No way. Sam had a knack for cutting off the entire conversation with that razor-sharp edge in his voice. He had this chance and messed it up a long time ago. Sam looked around them. Is he still here? His hands pulled into tight fists at his side. Leela stared him down. He's not here now, but he's coming for dinner. The thought of sitting across from August for an entire meal made her stomach churn. But it was too late to back out of this arrangement now. She would simply have to power through, much like when she had been 20 years old and it had become clear that August wasn't coming back for her. She could see the looks of sympathy on acquaintances' faces when she'd run into them at the grocery store in town. You doing okay, sweetie? Well-intentioned people would ask. Of course, she answered as though auditioning for a play. I've moved on. She'd moved on, which meant the whole situation didn't have to be a big deal. This is the best way to deal with August, she insisted. We have to keep our friends close and our enemies closer right now. Nona and Popa think that we're engaged, so I need you to be nice to him. She wouldn't be able to pull this off pull this charade off without Sam's help. Nice to him? Her brother's face flushed like it always did when he got indigestion. You want me to be nice to him? You have to be supportive, Leela said firmly. You have to. Treat him like a member of the family. For Nana and Papa. And that was how they both get through this. By focusing on their grandparents. August is our best chance to fix things here. I can use his knowledge and experience to our benefit. As much as she hated to admit it, she read up on him. She'd seen his accolades in those wine magazines. He's very good at his job, and we could use the help. I don't trust him. Sam crossed his arms tightly over his chest. Not after what he did to you. I cannot trust him. I don't trust him either. When she had looked at August, something in her iced over, freezing her heart. But this arrangement is our only option right now. And she would be careful. She wouldn't be fooled by that man again. Fine, Sam mumbled as he walked past her. But he better not get the wrong idea about you and him, or I'll have to set him straight. He won't get the wrong idea, trust me, and neither would she. Leela hurried to catch up with her brother. By the time she made it back to the ATV, Sam had put on the spare helmet and already had the engine running. She pulled on her helmet, climbed out on the back, and blitzed them up to the barn much faster than she would have dared. When they crested up to the top of the hill, a very familiar truck came into view. It was a good thing she wasn't driving, or she might have swerved off the path. How long would her heart take a dive every time she saw August? Sam parked the ATV next to the barn, and August walked over to meet them as they climbed off. Nice to see you, Sam. In August's credit, he didn't cower, even though her brother must have had a good 50 pounds on him. I'm not a fan of this arrangement, he informed August as a greeting. The man simply nodded as though he understood. I would imagine you're not. Sam moved in a step closer, but August stood his ground. Don't screw it up, or I'll have to screw you up. Got it? August accepted the threat with another nod. Got it. Her brother walked away, grumbling, and left the two of them standing on the sidewalk in front of the barn alone. It's nice to see he's still a people person, August said when Sam had made it out of earshot. Leela shrugged. He doesn't pretend, and sometimes that was better. Speaking of pretending, is your family coming? She couldn't even imagine what Mara most think about this whole plan. No. August cast a quick glance around before his eyes met hers. I told my family what's going on, though, so they won't mess anything up. For some reason, the news didn't bring her any relief. But they'll probably steer clear of us for the most part. The words were borderline apologetic. My mother is about as thrilled as Sam and I would lie to your grandparents. We can't think of it as lying. She never lied to Nana and Papa. She never had to. With her parents divorcing when she was young and her mother and father too concerned with living their own lives to worry about children, her paternal grandparents raised both her and Sam. They'd always encouraged openness and honesty, and she rarely worried about telling them anything until now. We have to think of it more like keeping a secret that would hurt them if it ever came out. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to do this. We're protecting them. If Nana found out why you were really here, she would only get anxious, and I can't risk my grandmother's health going downhill again. Sympathy flashed in his eyes. Excuse me. and the familiarity of the look he gave her lifted her heart. It seemed he wasn't wearing the same mask of indifference he'd had on earlier. Leela inched backward. Where was the shield when she needed it the most? August seemed to sense the unease and stepped back to give her space. So we should probably talk about how we're going to do this. Across the parking lot, the office door opened. Nana bustled out. Without thinking, Leela grabbed August's hand and led him behind the barn to the edge of the vineyard so they couldn't be seen or heard. She quickly let go of him, but the touch had already made its big impact, giving her heart a good jolt. It's like they were right back in high school sneaking around, August commented, raising an eyebrow as though he wouldn't mind revisiting some of the activities they enjoyed doing together back then. Sneaking out here behind the barn into the vineyards with a blanket had been the